Some idols aren't meant to be worshipped. They were built to feed what's not blessed. There's a reason people say Beyonce's concerts feel more like ceremonies than performances. The Cowboy Carter Tour wasn't just about music. The symbols, the trance-like crowd, the rituals hidden in plain sight. It wasn't hype, it was devotion. Blind, loud, and contagious. I didn't believe any of it until I went to her Atlanta show. I was just a guy taking his girlfriend to see her favorite artist. But the moment the lights dropped, something felt wrong. The deeper the set list went, the stranger it became. It wasn't a concert, it was a conversion. And when she looked straight at me, I knew. I didn't leave a fan. I left infected. I'm not the kind of man who buys concert tickets. I'm a homebody, a 2 feet on the ground kind of guy. Give me a vinyl, a quiet room, and something to sip, and I'm good. But Kelly made me want to be the kind of man who surprises his girl with Beyonce tickets. The Atlanta stop, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, sold out within hours. I paid more than I should have, but the look on her face made it worth it. She teared up right there in the living room, called me soft, and hugged me so tight I forgot about the dent in my account. Kelly, she was light. That's the only way I can explain it. She worked as a youth counselor at a school most people drive past without looking. She stayed late for girls who didn't believe in themselves. She prayed for people who hurt her. She hummed gospel songs when she cooked, quoted scripture like it was muscle memory, but never once judged me for being in progress. She made God feel like a safe place, not a rule book. We'd been dating for 5 months. It was new, but real. And when she told me she hadn't seen Beyonce live since she was in high school, something told me this was the gift. Her whole week changed after that. She glowed different, smiled deeper, wore gold eyeshadow, and told me, I'm dressing for royalty. That night, Atlanta was alive. People flooded the streets outside the stadium, laughing, buzzing, glowing under the street lamps like electric bees. Metallics, sequins, silver boots. Thousands of fans looked like they'd stepped out of a dream or into one. I remember one girl yelling, "Mother is coming," like a prophet. She held up a sign that read, "She speaks, we listen." Another group chanted in sync, "She is the light, she is the voice, she is the way." I laughed it off, but something about it made the hairs on my arms rise. It wasn't just fan energy, it was reverence. Like they weren't waiting on an artist, they were waiting on an altar to open. We made our way through security. The woman scanning my ticket barely looked up, just waved us forward. Kelly squeezed my hand and pulled me inside. Inside, the place was massive, oceans of light and people, the stage set like some futuristic cathedral. Hanging overhead was a crystal orb, womb-shaped, pulsing soft golden light. Thin wires ran up like umbilical cords into the rafters. I remember thinking, this looks more like a temple than a concert. Then the lights went black. A low tone rang out, deep enough to shake your chest. You could feel it in your teeth. People screamed, not in fear, but something else. Release, maybe, or hunger. The orb lit up, then cracked open like an egg. Beyonce rose from within, slow, controlled, her body perfectly still. She wore chrome armor, half goddess, half machine. Her eyes were downcast. Her hands were outstretched like a priestess inviting prayer. Kelly gasped. The crowd didn't cheer at first. They praised. Hands shot up. People wept. Someone next to me fell to their knees and whispered, "Thank you for coming back." Then the music started. I'm that girl. But something was off. The bass was wrong. Not just loud, low, sub-level. Like it was moving through the floorboards, into your feet, up your spine. My stomach turned. My balance shifted. It felt like gravity had changed direction. Kelly didn't notice. She was locked in, singing every word like she'd rehearsed them for this moment, her eyes wide but soft. Her body swayed gently, like she was in worship. I looked around. No one was dancing. No one was even smiling. They were entranced. A man 2 rows ahead of me stood with his arms wide, palms up, head back like he was in church. A woman beside him had mascara running down her face, but she looked peaceful. A man to my right was mumbling the lyrics like a prayer, over and over, eyes closed. I wanted to say something to Kelly. I turned to her, but her lips were still moving, singing, eyes glassy, as if she didn't even notice me anymore. I took a breath, closed my eyes for just a second, and in that darkness, I heard a voice in the music, a whisper buried in the mix. Let her in. I opened my eyes. The lights on the stage were a different color now, deep gold with blue underlighting that shimmered like holy fire. Beyonce moved to the edge of the platform, her arms still outstretched. I swear she looked right at me, not the crowd, me. A spotlight grazed across her face, and for just a second, her pupils dilated wider than natural. Black, not reflections, not shadows, black. Then she looked away. I blinked. My heart was racing. I tried to shake it off, to tell myself it was nerves. Big stage, big energy. That's all. But something in me knew better. Something in me was starting to whisper back. This wasn't just a concert, and something had just seen me. The next song hit before I could find words. It started soft, angelic vocal loops, scattered synths, but the visuals behind Beyonce turned violent. The LED screen pulsed with shifting patterns. Stained glass fractured into a honeycomb. Honey spilled downward in slow motion, flooding a church floor. The music climbed, layered, glitchy. The song was Church Girl. But this wasn't a song. It was a spell. The entire stadium swayed like tall grass in wind. Hands rose in perfect timing. Heads bowed like something holy was happening. Beyonce stood center stage in white, but not the kind of white you associate with innocence. It was sharp, radiant, almost weaponized. Behind her, the visuals changed again. No longer bees and glass. Now it was symbols. Circles inside circles, geometric halos hovering above altars, horned cow heads made of gold, a spinning wheel of glowing ash and pollen, rimmed in ancient script. It took me a minute to realize what I was looking at. These weren't designs. They were sigils, ritual symbols. I leaned closer to Kelly. She wasn't just enjoying herself. Her eyes were closed, lips moving soundlessly, her arms raised slightly like she was mid-prayer. But it wasn't a prayer I recognized. She wasn't mouthing lyrics anymore. She was chanting. I could see her hands shaking, almost vibrating, like the frequency of the music was traveling through her bones. I touched her shoulder. Kelly. No response. The crowd around us pulsed forward with the beat. Beyonce didn't speak. She just extended her arms and tilted her head to the sky. On cue, the LED screen erupted into golden light, and the bass dropped so hard my knees buckled. That's when it happened. She looked at me again. I don't care what anyone says. It wasn't in my head. Beyonce's face on the screen zoomed in, lips parted slightly, breathless. The camera panned, slow and cinematic, like a baptism scene in a horror movie. Then her head turned, and her eyes locked directly into mine. She didn't blink. She didn't smile. Her pupils expanded unnaturally until there was no color left, only black, like looking into 2 open graves, and my hand rose. I didn't lift it. I swear to you, I didn't lift it. It floated upward, elbow first, wrist slack, like something inside me had been given permission to speak. I couldn't feel my fingers. A warmth rose up my chest, like a fever breaking. But instead of relief, it felt like part of me was being peeled away. Something tender, something human, like grief or memory. My hand trembled in the air. She whispered something, but it wasn't through the mic. It was in my head. Let go. And I almost did. I swear I almost did. The pressure behind my eyes felt like crying. My knees buckled again. My heart started pounding in my throat. I couldn't hear anything anymore. Just that tone, that low primal hum underneath the music, like an engine revving in the earth itself. And then, just like that, it stopped. I blinked. Beyonce was halfway across the stage, dancing, smiling, her eyes scanning the crowd like none of it had happened, like she had never seen me. But I knew better. I looked at my arm. It was still raised. I yanked it down. My palm was cold, like it had been holding something heavy. I turned to Kelly. She hadn't moved, still smiling, still swaying, still whispering something I couldn't make out. I gripped her hand. Kelly, hey, babe, let's go. Nothing. I tugged harder. She didn't budge. Her body was stiff, not frozen like fear, but anchored, like something below the floor was pulling her downward. Her shoes were flat on the ground, but when I pulled, she felt heavy, unnaturally heavy. The man to my right swayed gently. His eyes rolled back. The girl in front of us had her arms locked in place, fingers bent like claws toward the stage. It wasn't just Kelly, it was dozens of them, maybe hundreds, posed like statues, mid-worship, mid-offering. I looked around panicking, and then, across the aisle, someone else was moving. A woman in section 117, black hoodie, hood pulled tight. She wasn't swaying, she wasn't praying. She was looking, eyes wide, face pale. She scanned the crowd like I did. Our eyes locked for a second, and in that second I knew she saw it too. Whatever was happening, I wasn't imagining it. She mouthed something to me. I couldn't hear it. I took a step forward, intending to find her, ask her what she saw, but the lights changed again. A sharp, sudden cut to black. Then came Beyonce's voice. Not singing, speaking. Low, director, and close, like a whisper in the ear. Atlanta, she purred. The crowd erupted in shrieks and gasps, like they were starving and just heard the bell ring for dinner. Kelly's lips stopped moving. Her eyes opened, but they weren't looking at me. She looked past me, through me, toward the voice. That's when I knew. The Hive had chosen her. It was nearing the end of the show, but it didn't feel like any concert finale I'd ever experienced. No one was screaming for an encore. No one was filming. They were just watching, silent, eyes glassy, mouths half open, waiting like obedient followers in a temple. Beyonce stood still on stage under a single spotlight. The floor beneath her glowed in a soft red pulse. The screens behind her, which had been flashing rapid visuals all night, suddenly went dark. Then she spoke. "Atlanta," she said, her voice low and slow, like someone delivering a prophecy. "I have a gift for you." A long silence followed, stretching awkwardly, like time had stalled. Then, from behind the glowing curtain, a small figure emerged. It was Blue Ivy. She wasn't dancing or skipping. She walked slowly, intentionally, like she'd been rehearsed for something solemn. She wore a long robe, gold with crimson patterns I couldn't quite place. At first, the crowd gasped. Some people cheered, but it quickly died down, because something felt off. Her face was calm, too calm. Not the shy confidence of a performer, not the nervous pride of a child on stage. It was blank, like she was in a trance too, or like she knew something we didn't. The moment she reached the front of the stage, Beyonce turned to her slowly, almost ceremonially. She reached out and placed both hands on Blue Ivy's shoulders. They stood like that for what felt like a full minute. The music behind them was gone. Just wind noises like a storm brewing far away. Then the LED screens behind them lit up again, but it wasn't abstract visuals anymore. It was something else, something closer to religious iconography. A beehive split open to reveal a burning sun, a circle of hands reaching toward a single flame. A woman with 6 wings, her face hidden, arms outstretched over a crowd of bowing heads. People around me dropped to their knees. I turned to Kelly. She was already kneeling, hands clasped, eyes forward, lips moving. I leaned down and whispered, "Kelly, get up. Let's go." She didn't even flinch. I looked around again. I thought I saw someone else, a woman in a black hoodie, still standing a few rows over. She looked just as confused as me. We locked eyes, just for a second, that flicker of shared panic. But then she disappeared into the sea of bodies lowering themselves to the ground. On stage, Beyonce lifted her head. Her eyes were open wide now, not in fear, not in joy, just wide, staring, like she was looking through us. She lifted one hand and pointed at Blue Ivy. "This is the future," she said. "This is the reason you came." The audience erupted, not in screams, but in synchronized applause. It didn't sound human. It was too unified, too clean. Kelly whispered something. "She carries the blessing." I grabbed her arm and pulled. "We're leaving, now." She resisted, not violently, but with a stiffness that didn't make sense, like her whole body was glued to the ground. I pulled again. Nothing. I looked at the people around us. They were all on their knees, heads tilted toward the stage. Their mouths moved, but I couldn't hear the words. It was like a low hum, a chant, and then a low rumble above us. The lights dimmed, the music returned, but it wasn't music. It was something else. A single droning note, low and deep, vibrating in my chest. And that's when the horse appeared. From above the stage, descending on a nearly invisible rig, came a massive chrome horse. It looked metallic, futuristic, but aged at the same time, like a relic from another world. Its eyes glowed a faint white. Its body shimmered with subtle engraved patterns that pulsed with the beat of the sound. People gasped. Some began crying. Beyonce stepped onto a platform beside it and mounted the horse slowly. The crowd rose in unison as she ascended with it, the rig lifting her up into the air like a goddess on a throne. The chanting grew louder, faster. Symbols flashed on the LED screens, circles within circles, stars forming and collapsing. A crown of thorns spun around a glowing orb. I looked at Kelly. She was standing now, but her eyes were still locked on the stage. Her lips were trembling. Tears streamed down her face. "She's the mother of rebirth," she whispered. I backed away. My knees shook. I was sweating. I didn't know if I was the only one awake. And in that moment, Beyonce's gaze passed over the crowd. I don't know if it landed on me. I hope it didn't, because as the horse turned slowly in the air, carrying her in a silent mechanical orbit, I saw something that turned my stomach. Her eyes were black. Not costume black, not makeup, empty. And behind her, Blue Ivy stood center stage, smiling, arms lifted, receiving the worship. The lights pulsed once, then again. The final image on the screen, a single word, rebirth. And everything went dark. I grabbed Kelly's arm. This time she moved. We didn't run. We couldn't. It felt like walking through thick air, but we left. And I didn't look back. We left the stadium in silence. Not just me and Kelly, everyone. The usual post-concert buzz was gone. There was no laughter, no screaming. Just the sound of heels clicking on concrete and the low hum of electric signs flickering above the parking lot. Kelly held my hand tightly. Her fingers were warm, but they didn't squeeze back when I tried to reassure her. She didn't say a word for the first 5 minutes of the car ride. Then, as if her internal dam had cracked, the words started spilling. "She's not just a performer," she said, staring straight ahead. "You saw it, didn't you? That wasn't a concert." I didn't answer. I just drove. "She's beyond human now," Kelly whispered, almost in awe. I felt something shift in my chest when she raised her hand. It was like I was weightless, like something inside me stood up. I shot her a look. "She gave me clarity," she continued. "I finally understand what power looks like. I want to feel that again." She kept talking, her voice soft, reverent, the kind of tone people use in cathedrals. I nodded quietly, letting her finish, but I felt it building, this heavy, cold pit in my stomach. When we pulled up outside her apartment, she turned to me with wide, glowing eyes. "You coming up?" I hesitated. On any other night, I would have gone in without a second thought. But there was something about her tone. Too calm, too composed. and something behind her eyes, a shine that hadn't been there before. "I think I just need to be alone tonight," I said. Her smile didn't falter. "Okay," she said. "Just promise me you'll listen to the encore again. Alone. It hits different when you're ready." "Yeah," I said, though I had no intention of doing that. She stepped out of the car and disappeared up the stairs. I sat there for a second, staring at her door, then started driving. The streets were empty. Just the quiet hum of traffic lights, the occasional flicker of a street lamp, and my own thoughts, clawing at the inside of my skull. I stopped at a red light just past a gas station. There was no one else around. That's when I felt it. A slow, creeping tension behind me, like someone was in the back seat, holding their breath. I didn't want to look, but my eyes moved on instinct. I reached up and tilted the rearview mirror. That's when I saw her. Beyonce, sitting in the back seat. Perfect posture, pale skin, long hair cascading over her shoulders like silk, and her eyes completely black, not like contact lenses, like bottomless voids. She leaned forward slowly, one hand reaching for my shoulder. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her fingers were just about to touch my jacket when the light turned green. I blinked. She was gone. The back seat was empty. I floored it through the intersection and didn't stop until I was parked in front of my building. I rushed inside, locking the door behind me, heart pounding in my throat. My apartment felt wrong. Every sound seemed louder. Every shadow seemed deeper. I turned on every light, paced for a while, then sat down at my computer without knowing why. My fingers started typing before my mind caught up. Beyonce Spiritual Symbolism Concert, Atlanta 2025. Dozens of threads, conspiracy forums, TikTok clips, old Reddit posts, people whispering about the same thing. She's not performing, she's channeling. Those weren't costume choices, they were invocations. Every stage design mimics ritual circles, vives, or sigils from West African and Caribbean traditions. That's when I saw the names. Oshun, Mami Wada, Yamaya, Oya, spirits, Orishas, deities, ancient goddesses of water, fertility, destruction, rebirth, feminine power, beautiful, seductive, and terrifying. The more I read, the more the pieces fell into place. The flowing robes, the trance states, the chrome horse as a mount of a goddess, the rebirth message, even the hive imagery, not just branding, ritual language. I found a post from an anthropology student who attended a show in Houston. It wasn't entertainment, it was initiation. She's not Beyonce anymore. She's a vessel. I leaned back in my chair, heart thudding. All those moments during the show, the synchronized chanting, the hypnotic visuals, Kelly's stiff resistance when I tried to pull her away. It all started to look different now. Not exaggerated, not surreal, just ancient. I walked to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. That's when I noticed it, my eyes. They weren't black like hers, but something behind them felt swollen, like there was something sitting just behind the iris, waiting. I leaned closer to the mirror. There was a faint sound, not in the room, not outside, inside me, a buzzing, faint, dull, like bees in a jar. I backed away. My hands were shaking. It wasn't the concert I brought home. It was her, or whatever's living through her now. Because when I close my eyes, I don't see the stage. I see the horse, the crowd kneeling, Blue Ivy smiling like a crowned child of prophecy, and Beyonce standing at the center of it all. Her eyes void, her voice echoing in my skull without words, just intention. Worship me. I looked back into the mirror. Something was changing. Not fast, not loud, but certain, like a hive growing just beneath the skin. Some people say Beyonce is just an entertainer. But if you were in that stadium, if you felt what I felt, you'd understand it wasn't a show, it was a summons. So here's what I want to know. If Beyonce is spiritual, who do you think she's worshiping? Drop your theories in the comments. I'll be reading every one. And if you made it this far, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that dig beneath the surface of fame. Because in this industry, not every idol is what they seem. See you in the next one.